So this is what our church currently looks like at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning. And obviously it's completely deserted because we're all under lockdown. We've been forced out of our physical buildings and instead we're now doing church online. So today I've had to come into church to pre-record a couple of messages with a few of the preachers here. And I thought, why would we do that? Why not share a few of the ideas that have been working for us with the hope that it will just spark some creative ideas for all of us. So we've been planning our live stream for about 2 years now, and we see it as a really great opportunity to reach local people with the good news of Jesus. So we're not so much trying to be a mini Hillsong or a mini Bethel, because we think they're doing something actually quite different. They're basically resourcing the global church with some awesome songwriting and high-end delivery of worship. We're instead trying to reach people down the road, around the corner, who've probably barely heard of Jesus and maybe never heard the gospel at all. We've already seen some of the fruit. So we've seen friends and neighbours who would never normally go to church watch online, which has been really, really beautiful. So we've really been developing our live stream since September last year, and we've just finished the installation and got it to a point where we were ready to go live, and we're thinking about how do we transition into this, which band do we go live with first. But of course lockdown has forced us all online, so whether we were planning it or not, we're now all streaming our church services. I think all the restrictions have actually forced a lot of creativity out of us, and I think the church is going to be left with some pretty significant tools that it wouldn't have otherwise developed. So I should probably introduce myself, as this is like my first ever vlog, and I'm hoping it gets more than like 3 views. My name is Sam and I head up the media and communications at Kings Church in Eastbourne. I'm a bit of a content creator, so I do a lot of graphic design, web design and videography, and I love experimenting and seeing how we can use those tools to advance God's kingdom and resource the church. So I will say that all the views I express in these videos are my own and not necessarily those of Kings Church, because I don't want to get myself fired. It's just me, just my thoughts. So in this video we're going to look at a whole number of things that we've been learning at Kings, and maybe you can adopt some of them, or maybe you can share some of your ideas with us. Type away in the comments, I'd love to hear some of your ideas. So first up, I thought we'd look at something techie, and that's Wirecast. If you've not checked it out, it's pretty cool. If you're not familiar with Wirecast, it's basically a piece of software produced for live stream production. It's very similar to OBS, but it's sort of the fully fledged big brother to it. So OBS is itself a great piece of software for live streaming. It's completely free and very robust. It's simple and intuitive. You can have videos, cameras, microphones. You can create layers and compositions, which they call scenes, and you can also mix audio and add all sorts of effects. So it's a great bit of software, but it's kind of limited at the same time, and it doesn't do everything you really need it to take things to the next level. But before we do anything else, I'm actually really hot in this jumper, so let's sort that out. So this is what Wirecast looks like. It's actually very simple and really intuitive, but advanced enough to give you all the features that you want. Most prominent, of course, you've got the 2 windows. You've got the live window and you've got the preview window, where you can select your next shot, and if you want to build a composition up with layers. You can go up to 5 layers, but we've actually never needed more than 2. It's worth noting that individual shots themselves can have layers on them, so you can build up a composition beforehand and then that's ready to go live in your stream. So down the bottom here, we have a number of video sources, which might be a playlist, it might be an individual video, it might be a live camera. So video playlists are really useful. It's probably the one feature I really wanted with OBS, but it just didn't exist. Video playlists, it sounds exactly like what it is. It's the ability to just put one video after the other and have them play consecutively. It's really useful when you've got different content and you don't want to edit just one massive long video. You can break it up into little bits, you can change the order, you can flip them around. So we use it in places like the pre-roll, where we go live before the meeting and have all sorts of content playing. And now under lockdown, we're using 4 or 5 different playlists of pre-recorded video content that makes up most of our online church service. A few other key features of Wirecast include chroma keys, simple color grading and cropping, screen captures, text layers and ticker tapes. You also have the ability to add in all sorts of audio and video sources, including live video links to remote guests. The countdown clocks on playlists and videos are incredibly helpful, especially when you're switching to live content and you need to know the exact moment to cut. The software is straightforward enough that in our lockdown situation, you could both operate your service and host the meeting live without too much trouble. One semi-useful feature in Wirecast is screen capture, which we have briefly mentioned already. It allows you to add pretty much anything running on your computer as a video source. Telestream do claim that you can integrate Zoom video conferencing into your live stream using this feature. You simply capture the Zoom window into Wirecast and you're good to go. Obviously, all good video conferencing should be done in your pajamas while pretending to be in the Caribbean. But what you should be able to see here is that it's very laggy. This is because when you push an application into the background on a Mac, it will divert its resources away from that software, and in this case, it results in a low frame rate. As a comparison, this is what Zoom should look like. So probably a better option to screen capture is to actually just use a separate computer and take the HDMI feed out of that and into Wirecast. So I've actually got this set up now where I'm using a 2011 MacBook Pro, my old laptop basically, and I've plugged that into my Ultra Studio mini recorder. I then use a Thunderbolt cable to go into the back of the iMac, and then I'm adding that as a source in Wirecast. So let's go do that now. Let's click this plus button. We're gonna go to video capture and then Ultra Studio mini recorder. We're gonna add that in, and you can see we've got the screen right there, and we can go live with it. One setting that I did need to change, it initially came up on 1080i, which looks like this, which if you move it around, it's not doing it too much actually. You can see there's actually a little bit of interlacing on there, which is obviously because it is 1080i, it's interlaced. You want 1080p so that you don't get that interlace effect, basically. But once it's there, you can actually see you've got your whole computer monitor there set up, which you can capture anything you like. So we're just on YouTube now, so we're just gonna play a random video. And we can play that full screen and we can see what the playback quality is like. And as you can see down here, both audio and video is coming through and it's playing really nicely. We've tested it out and it does work beautifully. It's a lot more robust than Rendezvous or screen capture, and this setup doesn't eat up the CPU on your main broadcast machine. There's many creative things that integrating Zoom opens up, such as using live Sunday morning hosts patched in from their own homes, or even live worship from remote locations. You just need to get those audio settings right in Zoom. And you're obviously not limited to any one application. You can use it to integrate FaceTime, Skype, Ecamm Live, or basically anything that you can run on a second computer. This setup will also work with other streaming software like OBS. So that brings us to point number 2, which is live stream hosting. This is one of the things that has gone down really well, surprisingly well in fact. At the moment with lockdown, we've got a lot of pre-recorded elements, but the danger of that is that everything could be pre-recorded, and then it's not really a live stream. When everything is pre-recorded, it can feel quite flat and stale. You know, it's very safe and it's very clean, but you're not really in the moment with people. You're communicating from a different point in time and space. And so you don't get that human warmth, that emotion, and that responsiveness. Presenting live means you can respond to comments, to chat, and just to the whole feel of the morning right there and then. And it really is the live elements that bring things to life. You know, it's really hard to understand how the morning will feel until it's live. Things like the weather and the news all affect things. And you are a very different person when you're live. You don't get 400 takes and then you use the best one. You only get one chance to get it right, and inevitably you make mistakes. And that makes it feel live, authentic, real and dynamic. So not being able to edit yourself is a very human quality. Interaction with live human beings is without doubt one of the most significant parts of the real church experience, much more so than the staging, the lighting, or trying to maintain the look and feel of all your brand values. In many ways, live hosting is the most natural place to start, as it can be very spontaneous and reactive if needs be. Both the worship and the preach largely present and feel the same to the viewer, whether they're actually live or not. There's probably one other dynamic that wasn't deliberate on our end but has worked out well, and that is just the informal, chatty style of the hosting. Treating it more like a life group, a small group where you're talking to a handful of people at a time rather than addressing 500 people in your main hall. The reality is you are only talking to a small group of people individually in their homes, so treat it like a life group. 400 or 500 people may be watching it, but they're not watching it as a gathered community. And this is one thing we get to do which we wouldn't normally get to do, and that is just chat to people and be with them almost one-to-one now through hosting. So do think about that and do make use of that. And I think this brings us to a bit of a philosophical interlude. You know, if we just try and recreate church online as it might look and feel in the flesh on a Sunday morning, we might be missing something. It will probably just be a poor imitation of the real thing. Instead, we just need to treat it as a very different thing. And I think the key question is, what can you do now with online church that you couldn't do before? We may be stuck in this format for a while. Mass gatherings may be off the agenda for some time, even if lockdown eases. I think answering that question is the key to bringing online church to life. Okay, I'm thirsty for a Coke. There's no one here. Stealing from the church wrong? I have to say the calorie count recently has gone a little bit AWOL. Error. Unfortunately, this is what our broadcast room currently looks like. It's a little bit of a mess. It was looking quite pretty in here before lockdown, but things have definitely taken a turn for the worst. But we'll be back up and running before long, hopefully. So another reason I'm at Kings is not just to film sermons with people on this, but it's also because my internet at home is broken, and as you know, it is literally impossible to do any work without the internet. So I'm at Kings all by myself, probably not another human around for I think a radius of about 100 meters. Just pretty lonely times. But you should definitely pray for my kids. They can't do any schoolwork, which is brilliant, but there's no Netflix. Massive thumbs down. Okay, so point number 3, the more faces on screen, the better. It's really hard now to capture a sense of gathered community, especially if you just have a host, a worship leader, and a preacher. Those are 3 faces. You wouldn't normally just see 3 people on a Sunday morning. Getting as many faces on screen, I think, is key. And a few of the ways we've done this is through lots of homegrown video content like cardboard testimonies, vox pops, Bible readings, alpha promos, news and updates videos. We've had live video links, kids worship songs, and even a bit of drama. So there's loads of easy and creative ways of getting people involved and recapturing that sense of community. And so that brings us swiftly to point number 4, and that is homegrown content is absolutely fine. There's definitely parts of your production that you need to do as good as you can do it, because then you can have peaks and troughs. You know, your peaks, your high-end stuff allow for little moments where it's not so good, but it's absolutely fine. So a lot of the times people will have shot content in portrait mode on their mobile phones and then just zipped it to us via WhatsApp, which compresses it loads. It's kind of quick and it's dirty and there's better ways to do it. But because of the speed at which we've had to put things together each week, it's been fine. There's a few little tips for working with low quality footage that can just bring things up a level. Adding high resolution elements into the composition can really help. This could be a logo, the edge of your video frame, some text, or a nice smooth background blur. All of these bring a sharpness and a clarity back into the frame. Secondly, and probably most importantly, it's all in the edit. Low quality footage can still be powerful when it's edited into a strong narrative with a killer music track. I think this naturally leads on to point number 5, is the delivery of content and at what pace. We've probably adopted more of a magazine type of delivery, lots of short, punchy bits of content. Physical church is very different from online church. When you come to physical church, you're much more absorbed in the moment. When you're watching at home on a screen, you kind of need things to move at a slightly faster pace to hold your attention. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. Perhaps the danger is you're heading more towards entertainment mentality, which leads us to a very interesting thought. When does interesting become entertainment? I think the very simple answer is that we are trying to capture interest long enough to be able to turn people's lives upside down through the gospel message of Jesus. If people click off your live stream because they're bored or it's unengaging, they're not going to get to the gospel. They're not going to get to the really important bits. So it is important to capture and maintain interest. Entertainment doesn't seek to change you. It doesn't seek to turn your life upside down. It just tries to absorb you in something, so it makes the producers of that content some money so they can sell advertising and things like that. It is important to be interesting. Every preach should be interesting. Every piece of content you include should be interesting. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's one of my first ever proper vlogs. It'll be the first video on my YouTube channel. Like and subscribe if you like it, and one day there might be another video here. I'm hoping this video will get more than 3 views, where, you know, 2 of them are my mum, but we'll see how it goes. I've definitely had fun making it, and hopefully there's just a few ideas in here that will get the creative juices flowing and will benefit your church. So great to see you guys. I'll see you next time.